Hi friends! Today we are going to be talking about this really cool phenomenon called synesthesia. So I want you to imagine that you're listening to a piece of music and you can see these colors popping up in front of your eyes. Or like you look up into the sky and suddenly you can taste crisp, clean water. Or maybe you're listening to the radio and you start to smell something really familiar, like you're listening to a song and you smell blueberry muffins. These are all signs or evidences that you could have synesthesia. So synesthesia, put very simply, is when one sensory response triggers a second sensory response. So like I said earlier, you could hear something and you could see a color, or you could see something and smell something else. It varies very, very greatly from person to person, and it's actually quite rare. Only 1 in 100,000 people are said to have synesthesia. Now this number may be bigger depending on what the data says, but really we aren't sure exactly what that number is because a lot of people might have synesthesia without actually knowing that they have synesthesia. There are lots of famous artists and musicians that actually have synesthesia. One of the most famous artists that we know of that had synesthesia is Vincent van Gogh. He is said to have had synesthesia by many historians, as evidenced through the work that he has and the things that we've seen him paint. Some other modern day examples of artists and musicians that have synesthesia, Kanye West is said to have synesthesia, Pharrell Williams, Billy Joel, as well as Duke Ellington. They're all very famous musicians and they've all said how synesthesia has played a role in how they write their music. Now, some of the visual artists that have synesthesia might not be as well known, but I'm going to include some of the images and some of the pictures that they have created in this video so that you can see some examples of what synesthesia art might look like. And like I said, it's different for every single person. Everyone might have a different reaction to certain sounds or different stimuli, and so their art is going to be very, very different. And lots of people interpret it in many different ways. Now, it's important to clarify that synesthesia is not simply forcing your brain to think of a certain color or to think of a smell when you hear or see something. It's an automatic response that happens, and that's why it's so rare for people, because a lot of people, it's easy to think of a color. When I say think of angry, what color comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's red. And that may or may not be an indicator that you have synesthesia. But for people who do have it, it's always the same color for the same stimulus, and it is constant, and they can do it with less common examples, if that makes sense. For example, they might think of the letter A and they can have a physical response to that, and they can say, A is always lime green for me. Just because synesthesia is rare and unique and it's not something that everyone possesses doesn't mean that we can't have associations between stimuli. For example, like I said, with angry meaning red, you can have similar responses. So what color do you think of when I say the word happy? For me, I think of the color yellow because of past experiences in my life, and it reminds me of the sunshine and happiness and summer, and that just makes me feel happy. So that's what I associate with that word. When I think of the word annoyed, or when I say the word annoyed, what color comes to mind? For me, I think of the color gray because when I'm annoyed or when I'm in an irritable mood, I kind of go and be by myself and I don't want to be around people as much, and I'm kind of gray. So the theme of the Jubilee for this year is everyone's a superhero, and we are highlighting the theme from Superman, Man of Steel. And I wanted to ask you some questions and tell you some words and have you think about what colors you might associate with those words. You can write them down, you can think of them and tell your parents, whatever you want to do. So these are the words: Superman, cape, power, invisibility, save the day, villain, nemesis, and victory. It's okay if you can't think of anything, and if you actually have more than one thing, that's also okay. Doing exercises like these can help you understand what it might be like to have synesthesia. Did you know that you can test yourself to see if you have synesthesia? There's a really great activity you can do at home with the help of a parent or a friend. All you need to do is have them write the numbers 0 through 9 in a random order on a piece of paper, and then they're going to give that paper to you, and you're going to write down whatever color or sensation that comes to mind when you think of that number. And then they're going to take that paper and they're going to put it somewhere, and you're going to wait a couple of weeks, and then once a couple of weeks have passed, you're going to get another paper and you're going to do the exact same thing, and they're going to write down a set of numbers 0 to 9 in a random order, and you're going to again write down what response or stimulus or reaction or response you have to those numbers. And then you can pull out that first piece of paper that you filled out, and then you compare the two. If you have the same numbers or a reaction to each number, so if one you put red, and then on the second piece of paper you also put red for number 1, you might have synesthesia. Now granted, it has to match all of the numbers and it has to be the same answer for everything, but it's still a really good test and really easy way to test if you may or may not have synesthesia at home. Now, I am not an expert at synesthesia, so if you do this activity and you do think that you might have it, I would suggest you go and do further testing, that you go and talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about it. I'm going to include some links that will lead you to some more information about synesthesia so you can do your own research and learn a little bit more about it if you'd like, as well as some of the artwork that has been created by artists with synesthesia, so you can get an idea of how different it is between artists. If you choose to do so, I would encourage you to go and listen to the music put on during the Jubilee again and try to create some kind of artwork and see if you can come up with some kind of response to the sounds that you're hearing. See what you can come up with, and we will be happy to see any of the artwork that you create. You can tag Orchestra of Southern Utah on Facebook or on Instagram. Thanks for watching.